You're right. Hello. This video might have to be cut short. I'm not feeling too well, but I said that I'd do a video today, every day, no matter how I feel. So I got to do it even when I'm not feeling well. So tricky belly though. So if I suddenly have to race off, you know why. Okay. Um. So yesterday we talked about the Endgame film and didn't reveal any spoilers. Today, we're going to talk Endgame, and it's all spoilers. So if you haven't seen the film, turn this video off now. I'm not. I don't want to be the one to ruin anything for you. But if you have seen it, we're going to get into the nitty gritty of Endgame. So I watched it a couple of days ago, or 3 days ago, I think it was, on the Wednesday, and today is the Saturday. So I plan on watching it at least two or three more times while it's in the cinema because, it's the type of film that you really want to watch on the big screen, with the big sound. It's an epic film. And it's probably going to go down in history as being one of them films like on the epic scale, like Gladiator, Jurassic Park, Lawrence of Arabia. This is going to be on that scale in the future. And there's so much movie that happens. It's 3 hours long. 3 hours. 3 hours, man. Oh, my life. So it's and it yesterday we talked about Infinity War and Endgame being this one film that they had to split in half, and they chose to cut it at the end when Thanos clicked his fingers and then disappeared. But there was another point at which they were going to end the Infinity War film. So Endgame starts off pretty much straight after the snap, and it has the remaining Avengers, held up in the facility, the Avengers facility in America. They've traveled from Wakanda to America. It also tracks Iron Man in Nebula because they were the only ones left on that planet of Titan when they faced Thanos, when they got their butt kicked by Thanos. They were there with the others that got dusted. So they've obviously gotten into the ship that brought them there, that there's Tony Stark, Doctor Strange, and Spider Man were on. They've kind of got that ship up and running, I think, and are heading back. Or no, it's not that ship actually. It's not that ship. It's like a Quinjet ship type ship. So maybe it's one of Thanos's ships, but they're flying it back, and obviously they're light years away from Earth, so they ain't gonna make it in their lifetime. So they're running out of food. They're running out of oxygen. Tony's on death's door. They've been trying to get the ship and retrofit it and trying to save themselves, but they can't. They fail. And then all of a sudden, Captain Marvel turns up, ta-da, and literally tows them back to Earth, and lands them at the Avengers facility. And Iron Man is literally like, it looks like he's got AIDS. He's dying. He's really, really thin. He looks like a hobbled old man, and it's obviously affected him. He's taken the hit of losing Spider-Man and all his other friends and everything, failing against Thanos, and so like they go like we've got to go get him again. We've got to go face him again. And I don't think Tony Stark goes on that adventure to face him again. I think he's too weak, and I think it's Captain Marvel, Thor, um, it's Rhodey, the War Machine, Black Widow. I think they've even tracked down Hawkeye by now because he's gone off rogue. Um, and they go and face Thanos, and I believe they track him down, and they actually kill him. They honestly, boom, one swift stroke, and he's dead within the first 15, 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes of the film. Thanos dies, right? So that's it. You're like, well, the job done, avenged. Now this was the point at which Infinity War could have ended. So they could have had the snap, then they could have had another 30 minutes of film, and then Infinity War could have ended with Thanos dying. Right. So they've done it. That whole Thanos arc would have been wrapped up, it seems, in Infinity War, and it'd been like, well, that's that. Because the next thing you see is it goes 5 years later, and you're like, whoa. And of course, we're still in a future where everyone's dead, everyone's been dusted, but they've killed Thanos. But it's like they're now trying to live in a world without everybody, and they have to move on. And it's not until Ant-Man shows up, really, that he presents the idea of, say, listen, I've been trapped in the quantum realm, right? I was warned against time tunnels and stuff like that. So I've been thinking about it a lot. And I'm like, you know, there is a way to save everybody, because he's met his daughter when she's a bit older, because it's 5 years later. So she's 5 years older. And so his ex-wife is obviously dead. Hope has died. Michael Douglas got killed, and Janet Van Dyne, she died. So he really does want to bring people back because he wants the love of his life back. And so he really has an investment. And we see people have moved on. People have evolved. Their characters have evolved. The Hulk, right? This is one of the spoilers that I had learned before going in. The Hulk is now Professor Hulk. He is basically Bruce Banner and the Hulk in one person, where he can talk. He's very intelligent, but he's the big green Hulk. He's the best of both worlds, and he's quite funny. And he's really his character arc has really exceeded. Others have as well, like Thor. Another spoiler that I knew going in. Thor is basically, because of his he feels like, even though he killed Thanos, he's the one who killed Thanos. He feels like he's lost because he's lost everybody. He's in a dark place, and he's literally like, I've got the body of Thor. Basically, he's overweight. He's got a big, massive, bushy beard, and he's basically just gaming up in Scotland. He's like a gamer. He just plays video games all day with the rock creature from Thor Ragnarok, and it's really fun to see these characters come back. And so they're really like, Ant-Man shows up and says, listen guys, come on, time travel, like, we only need to figure this out because we can go back and prevent this thing from happening. And Tony's like Tony's moved on as well. Tony, in this 5 years, has settled down with Pepper Potts, had a child, gotten better. He's moved on. Everybody has kind of moved on, except for Ant-Man, who just comes back after 5 years. But for him, he said it was like only 5 hours. It's like time moves differently in this time tunnel thing, in the quantum realm. And it's like, it's only been 5 hours for me, guys. So it's like nothing's happened, and I really want people back. So he really does convince everybody to join up again, right? And come up with a plan to basically reset and bring back everybody they've lost. And that's really their only goal, is to bring back those people who have been snapped, to reverse the snap. But they're never going to be able to reverse time in terms of, okay, we're 5 years on, which means we're 2023. They're not going to be able to reset it back down to 2019, or 2018 when the film is set at the beginning. So they're just going to have to live in 2023, but they'll have their buddies back. And that's basically the plan. And they do it in such a fun way. It's like Back to the Future 2. It's like they go and revisit old films. They go and revisit, like, Avengers Assemble. They go revisit Captain America. They go revisit The Winter Soldier. You see characters from all these other films, and even characters who are in the current MCU, but you see them younger. And it's just, honestly, I think it's about an hour and a half to 2 hours sequence of them going back, because the idea is they've got to collect all the Infinity Stones. they've got to collect them all and then return them all, at the same point. They're basically borrowing the Infinity Stones, and then they can do a snap. And the only person who feels like who he can do it is the Hulk. Now, the Hulk almost loses an arm when he does it, and it kind of doesn't really work. He ends up like Thanos comes back as well, and now it's like Thanos is back, but it's a younger Thanos. It's Thanos from before Infinity War. So, and you're like, ooh, that's interesting because if Thanos from before Infinity War, if he knew all this knowledge of Endgame before Infinity War, that would have been a really cool direction because there was a moment between him and Tony Stark where he said, Stark, I know you, and you're not the only one, blessed with knowledge. And that would have been cool if that would have been the Thanos from Endgame who knew all this stuff, and met Tony in the future, and all this. But it's not. It's not. That's not the direction they go in. But suffice to say, we lose Avengers. Okay, I won't spoil that though. I mean, we are talking spoilers, I suppose, so we can. But we lose one of the major players, one of the major people. That little quiff is doing my head in. Look at that. Look at that. Alfalfa. The little rascals. Oh my god. Excuse me. We lose one of the major players of the Avengers, And I really enjoyed this film. It's a film that you're going to want to watch. Maybe not straight away because it's 3 hours long, and there's a lot of WTF moments. There's a lot of like, oh, that's cool because you're first discovering it. But when you know it's coming, is it going to be as exciting? There is a massive end battle, right? A massive end battle between Thanos and his army and every MCU character. Honestly, they just all show up. Every single one, right? Everyone shows up. And it's like this the biggest battle I have ever seen. Bigger than the Infinity War Wakanda scene. Bigger than any Lord of the Rings or Star Wars battle. This is bigger than Ready Player One. This is like a mega battle. I mean, it's massive. It's crazy what they've done. And of course, our characters win. Thanos dies again, and definitively, pretty much, I think this time. But nothing's for sure, nothing's for certain. But I mean, okay, we will talk about who he lost. Iron Man, basically. He puts on the gauntlet and clicks his fingers and dusts Thanos, right? But that, it was set up Infinity War. Human beings can't wear the gauntlet or hold an Infinity Stone. Your mind will go into madness and your body won't be able to take it. That is true, and Tony ends up dying. We lose Tony. But it's a nice moment at the end of the film because there's a funeral, and you see a little homage to Iron Man 1, and they're sending up Tony's, like, not body, but like a wreath off across the lake of where him and Potts and the child lived. And it's nice. It's a nice homage, right? He's sent off in a fitting way. It's a really nice moment. And then Tony, before this big battle, pre-recorded a hologram message, kind of like what we saw in Civil War with the virtual reality thing, right? He made this message to his child and to Pepper. I'm always going to be with you guys. Da, 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 da. And it got me thinking. Well, hang on. If he's recorded just that quick message, there is nothing stopping Tony basically creating himself as his own AI for his business, for the suits, for future, he could become the next like Jarvis or Friday. So Robert Downey Jr. could still be in the MCU, but just his voice and maybe a holographic computer version of Tony's face. There is nothing stopping that happening. So we kind of really, I feel like we haven't lost Tony. He's evolved on to the next stage if they go that way. Or they might not go that way, and we truly have lost Tony. But another nice beat, which kind of sets up for the future as well, was when Thor because obviously Gamora's died. She's the Soul Stone, but she is in Endgame because when Thanos comes forward in time, he obviously brings Gamora and Nebula forward in time. So we've got old Gamora, we've got a new Nebula, and old Nebula, and old Thanos. And when I say old, I mean in the past. They're the like the 2014 versions. They're not the current new versions. They're the past versions. Um, and so and Gamora is now alive in the current 2023 time period, and she doesn't know who Peter Quill is because she hasn't met him yet. So Thor joins up with the Guardians, and he goes, "Right, we're the Asgardians of the galaxy now," and that's pretty cool. You're like, Asgardians, of course. You know what I mean? It's like that makes sense, and he becomes, and they're obviously good. That's going to be Guardians 3, maybe the search for Gamora. Who knows? But obviously, Peter and Gamora are going to have to fall in love all over again. Um, it's really interesting, where things will go from here. Spider-Man: Far From Home. Now, one or two things can happen with that. Basically, either Far From Home is a prequel to Infinity War, which I believe it is, in which case Spider-Man, at the end of Far From Home, he goes back to New York, and as he's coming back into New York on the bus, that's when Infinity War kicks off, and he jumps out and joins the characters, and that's that. And who knows? Because Spider-Man does come back in Endgame, but obviously he's where he is, and any other classmate that wasn't dusted, right, is 5 years older than he is, and he's come back in a time where it's 5 years moved on, so, but he's the same age as when he left. So their time travel rules are really messed up. They have their own sort of logic for it. It's like, okay, so you can't change the future by going into the past. All that does is it gives you a new timeline. But when you go forward in time, you're still going back into your own time, which means your future is still the same, but the alternate timeline that you're never going to see runs parallel to this. Unless you stay in that timeline and move on with it. Right now, that's kind of what happens at the end of this film. Captain America, who they all get the Infinity Stones together from the past to stop the Thanos and all that, but they've got to return them as well. So at the end of the film, Captain America's got a suitcase with all the Infinity Stones. He's got to go on a mission to replace and put back all the Infinity Stones. We don't see this because it happens within like 5 seconds, like that. And when they're expecting him to come back after like 5 seconds, he goes away, and they go, "Right, coming back in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1." Nothing happens, and he's like, "Where's Captain America? Oh my gosh!" And they look over, and there's this dude sitting on the bench over there, and they walk over, and it's old man Captain America, and he's really old, and he's like, and he's got a shield, and Falcon walks over to him, and they have a little conversation, and it turns out that when Captain America went back to drop off the Infinity Stones, he stayed in the past, and he met up with Peggy Carter, right, and lived a life with Peggy Carter. Obviously, we did see Peggy Carter die in Civil War as an old lady, and it's that age that Captain America is at now. And so he's obviously made a life with Peggy Carter, and then waited until this moment in time, you know, to then go sit on that bench and rejoin the Avenger team, but saying, "Listen, guys, I'm retired now. That's it. I'm out. You're gonna carry on my mantle, Falcon. Here's my shield." And it's pretty cool because before Captain America went back in time, it meant Old Man Cap was still sitting on that bench, right? But obviously, it proves that it didn't change anything in his future by putting back the Infinity Stones. It just would have created an alternate future, which he'll never see because he then waited in this one, and then it caught up and he was able to say goodbye. And it's kind of nice. It was kind of a nice, not to kill off Captain America, but to keep him going. But he's out for the count. He's not returning. So I really enjoyed that way they did it. It was really nice, and that was pretty much it. That's pretty much the film. it does wrap up a lot of loose ends. It ties up a lot of things, but it is a really beautiful thing to see the film. It's like you just like that all the time, going, "Oh my gosh!" And the other spoiler that I knew was that they go back in time. They actually go time traveling to get these Infinity Stones, which means it's just fun. It's just pure comedic moments in that little 2 hour block of the film. I mean, this film, if you think about it, it's 3 hours long. This film, there must be deleted scenes. There must be a whole load of films that they filmed, a whole load of scenes, sorry, that they filmed but never used, which means the total runtime for this film is most likely 3 hours 40 minutes. If they'd have cut that in half, you could have had an Endgame Part One and an Endgame Part Two. They could have really dragged this thing out. I'm so glad they didn't. I'm so glad that it's all wrapped up now. We can move on in the MCU, and I'm going to have to move on with this video because 21 minutes, and I'm surprised I have not gone to the toilet yet. So, we're gonna leave it here for Endgame. You know, spoilers, talking about it. I really, really enjoyed it, guys. It's a brilliant film, and you know there is so much to see. To be honest, 21 minutes. I could talk for another hour about this film. I could do 3 videos about this film, but it's something you've really got to see for yourself, and you've seen it. Hopefully, if you're watching this, you know how awesome it is. You don't need me to tell you. So just look forward to the next time you see it again, guys. I gotta see it in 3D as well. Take care, guys, and I'll hopefully see you tomorrow. Well, I will see you tomorrow, not hopefully. I will see you tomorrow.